Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the AZ Sports Zone on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. I'm your host, Alden K, back here on another Friday to talk Arizona sports. We're going to start off with the Arizona Cardinals, and we're going to talk about free agency. A lot of opportunities for the Cardinals to make some moves in free agency, especially on the defensive line. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And speaking of the defensive line, the Cardinals made a call to Cincinnati on Trey Hendrickson earlier today. We will talk more about that. We'll talk about the Cardinals re-signing long snapper Aaron Brewer and safety Joey Blount. Two very important re-signs that the Cardinals made earlier today right before spring training. And then we'll talk about the Diamondbacks. Spring training continues on. We'll talk about how the players have been playing so far. And then we're going to have a little discussion about which pitcher should start on opening day, Corbin Burns or Zach Gallen. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk about the Phoenix Suns. The Suns recently made a 23-point comeback to beat the LA Clippers at home, but they still remain out of the playoffs so far. Matter of fact, they stay out of the play-in as of right now. So we'll continue to talk about the Suns, and we'll talk about Devin Booker and how the Suns announced that they will not be trading Devin Booker, and they will continue to build around him as he gets closer up there in age. So we'll see what happens. And then we'll close out AZ Sports Zone as usual with ASU and U of A, primarily basketball and baseball. We'll talk about that. You're listening to the AZ Sports Zone here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We will be right back once we hear a quick word from our sponsors, so don't go anywhere. See you in a bit.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans, be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to the AZ Sports Zone on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Once again, big shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, Vital Apparel, Seal the Deal Wax Seals, and of course, shout out to the IE Sports Radio. Happy to be back here on another Friday evening with you guys. And of course, shout out to our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Make sure to use the promo code IESR for 10% off. Prices are still high. Times are tough for most of us, so make sure to take advantage on getting as many discounts as you guys can. 10% is still 10%, so make sure to take advantage of that. Make sure to follow both of the X accounts that I run, starting off with AZ Sports Zone IE, where I will retweet a bunch of Arizona sports news, sometimes get my opinion on it, and my personal account at the AZTRL, that is the unfiltered version of Alden K. So if you want to get a good laugh in, make sure to follow that account as well. And of course, if you guys love the AZ Sports Zone, supporters link is right here. For the people that support, I may have you on a show one day to talk Arizona sports. So if you guys are interested in that. And before we get into our first segment, get to some comments. Our amazing Set Point host and SoCal host, Taryn Rodriguez, checking in. Appreciate it, Taryn. Our amazing Chi-Town Weekly and Neutral Zone host, Adam Karnick, is here. What do you think about the Coyotes making moves at the trade deadline? Yeah. I mean, on the bright side, the Coyotes not being a team anymore, I don't have to watch another Arizona team lose year after year. But of course, I still miss my Coyotes, but it is what it is. And Glenn, our host of the Bull North Breakdown, have a great show. Appreciate it, man. By the way, great show the other day. But with that being said, let's get into the Cardinals. So obviously, the Combine was recently, and of course, a little bit of free agency. So free agency is literally right around the corner. There's a lot of opportunities for the Cardinals as they are going into free agency with the fourth highest cap space. So they actually have money to spend. And there are a lot of players that could really impact the Cardinals, not just because of their talent, but because of what the Cardinals really need. Cardinals finished 8-9 last year. They were a hair away from making the playoffs, making the wild card. So still building off of the rebuild, obviously, with a new coach, new GM, Kyler Murray coming back from his injury and uh, being able to play a full season last year, which is a good stepping stone to hopefully getting back to the playoff team that this Cardinals team used to be a few years ago. So obviously, with free agency coming up, there are some guys that the Cardinals really could use, especially on the defensive line. There are a lot of guys on defense that the Cardinals should at least look into getting. Obviously, we talk about the pass rush, how our leader in sacks last year was Zaven Collins, and Zaven Collins had 5 sacks. 5 sacks, and that was our leader. That was our leader. So obviously, pass rush, I would say, would be the Cardinals, should be the number one on the Cardinals list regarding free agency this year. And of course, the Cardinals made a call for Trey Hendrickson. Now, Hendrickson recently requested a trade out of Cincinnati. He was demanding, or it was reported that he is demanding somewhere around $30 million a year. And obviously, uh, double-digit leader in sacks for the Bengals for these past few years. So this would be something that the Cardinals would be interested in, but I'm not going to get too excited about it because it's the Cardinals, and I hate saying it. The Cardinals have not been that type of team that would spend 30 million a year on, a pass rusher or anybody for that matter, except for Kyler Murray apparently. But he and something that I thought is interesting to bring up for this episode specifically regarding free agency is the last time the Cardinals had a player record double-digit sacks was J.J. Watt in 2023, his last year in the NFL. So it's been a couple of years since the Cardinals had a guy record double-digit sacks, and J.J. Watt too, a guy who frequently got injured for his 2-year tenure on the Cardinals, for a guy who frequently wasn't obviously Houston Texans, J.J. Watt. That was the last time we had a guy get double-digit sacks. So, and if you look at the free agents that are pass rushers, it's a very big list. Harold Landry, who the Tennessee Titans have decided to release. Actually, earlier today it was announced. They released Harold Landry, who is 28 years old, coming off of a season where he had 71 tackles and 9 sacks. Pretty serviceable for the Cardinals, especially because Baron Browning, who they traded for last year in the deadline, is slated to become a free agent as well, who he impacted the Cardinals a little bit in terms of the run game. The pass rush, obviously, nobody really showed up last year. So I would hope the Cardinals look to re-sign Baron Browning. There are some free agents that the Cardinals are going to try to re-sign before they sign free agents outside of the organization. Starting off with Aaron Brewer and Joey Blount. So they both were re-signed to 1-year deals. Two big important guys on the special teams, especially Aaron Brewer. He's been the long snapper of the Cardinals for, I believe, going on 5 years now, 6 years. So good to have him back. And Joey Blount as well, a guy who has been well known for the special teams. You may have even saw him a little bit last year playing safety with the injuries that the Cardinals dealt with. So these are the first two moves that the Cardinals made regarding re-signs. And Gambo actually reported that these were the players that he expected the Cardinals to re-sign first, and it actually happened not even a day later. It's not really official that the Cardinals are going to bring back certain guys like Kaiser White, which is a player I hope they bring back. He was a big impact, and he had a really good season along with Mac Wilson, who they just signed, and he still has 2 years left on his contract. So overall, while the defense and you know at the beginning of the 24 season, if I obviously I said that the defense I thought was going to be the weakest part of the Cardinals for that season, and it turns out the Cardinals defense actually showed up a lot more than the offense did to a certain degree in games. So, but despite all of that, still a lot of needs on the defense. I talked about the pass rush already. You have Harold Landry, who they just released. Chase Young is a free agent. So in New Orleans, he had 5 sacks, which 5.5 sacks actually, which that still would have led the Cardinals in 2024. So a little bit of a fun fact there, and potential, free agents. Jonathan Allen, who the Commanders just released, is a guy that, for the interior defensive line, I think would be a benefit for the Cardinals, not just because of the talent he brings to the Cardinals defense, but the current Cardinals defensive line consists of Darius Robinson, who was injured for most of his rookie season, going into his second year. So if they were to bring in Jonathan Allen or any veteran for that matter that still has a little bit left in the tank, they could be a pretty good mentor for Darius Robinson. Obviously, I talked about Zayvon Collins already, who still has 1 year left on his deal, I believe, if not 2 years, and was our sack leader last year with only 5 sacks. And of course, in the middle tier, uh, defensive tackle Roy Lopez, who was also hurt, but then again, who wasn't hurt on the Cardinals last year? The Cardinals have dealt with injuries quite recently these past few years. It's just an unfortunate situation that the Cardinals always seem to find themselves in, whether it's because of the strengthening and conditioning coaches, whether it's because of the football field, which a lot of players on our team in recent years have complained about the football field lately. Natural grass is, I guess, not every player's cup of tea, but the Cardinals are also bringing in Roy Robertson Harris on a visit. He was recently released by the Seahawks. So they're bringing in Roy Robertson Harris for a visit. So a guy who is familiar with playing against the Cardinals a little bit. He was on the Seahawks and then he was on the Bears recently when the Cardinals played against the Bears. So while I guess if they were to sign, it would be a good depth signing if they brought him in, but that should not be the Cardinals' main focus. One thing that the Cardinals tend to do is they just don't spend money. They would rather spend money on guys that are good for depth, don't cost a whole lot of money, and guys that are impacting the team in some ways, but not in any type of way a franchise pass rusher would benefit a team, or a franchise defensive back for that matter. Like the Cardinals franchise history has normally been consisted of building their team either through the draft or just through signing depth pieces, right? But it's a little bit hard to continue building this team through the draft this year because the Cardinals only have 5 picks. It's not anything like last year where they had 11 picks, which was more than any other team in football last year's draft. And they were just like, okay, yeah, we'll get Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll get another guy. We'll get this guy. We'll get that guy. And we'll just keep building through the draft, this and that. No. This year, they only have 5 picks. Well, so Monty Ossenfort should be taking advantage with the amount of cap space that he has, which is, I'm pretty sure it's near $70 million. It's really hard to ask an owner like Michael Bidwell to spend money, but at the end of the day, that's what it should come down to. This team was coming off an 8-9 season. They almost made the playoffs. This team is not that far away from being playoff contenders again if they just have another good offseason. And that's another thing too. When they look at the draft this year, they're picking 16th. They're picking in the middle of the pack. Then again, there are very good defense options in the draft this year that the Cardinals should look at. I really wish that the Cardinals were bad enough to be able to draft Will Johnson, or at least somewhat become close to getting him. but at the end of the day, we're picking 16th. But like I said, there are good defensive options, which we'll continue to talk about as we get closer to draft day. It's a little over a month away. So regarding free agency, though, obviously we talked about the pass rush, Jonathan Allen. They're bringing in Roy Robertson Harris for a visit. We talked about what was it, Aaron Brewer and Joey Blount being re-signed to the team. So there are guys from Philadelphia that the Cardinals are interested in that I think that they should go after because Jonathan Gannon did coach both of them, except for Josh Sweat, I believe. But Josh Sweat is a guy who I think that would really benefit the Cardinals. So he is. And the Cardinals are actually one of the top candidates to sign Josh Sweat in NFL free agency. So he had 8 sacks with the Eagles last season. And he also and by the way, the Arizona Cardinals cap space is $74.5 million to be exact. I just now saw it. But he has played for Jonathan Gannon when he was the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. So a little bit of chemistry already between the head coach and a potential pass rusher that the Cardinals could look at. And of course, ever since Jonathan Gannon made his way to the Cardinals, they have acquired former Eagles in the past, like Kaiser White. They brought in Nick Rallis as the defensive coordinator. So obviously, Gannon really loves familiarity coming to the Cardinals. So Josh Sweat, I think, would fill in a major need for the Cardinals because of his pass rush. Also, I think that a little bit enough with the defense. If we're looking at offense as well, the offensive line could use a little bit of a look in free agency. Center Ryan Kelly would be a good fit for the Cardinals as well. He only played 10 games last year. He is going to be 32 when the 2025 season starts. But overall, he has done pretty good for the Colts. But then again, obviously, Froholt, a guy who is coming off a pretty good year with the Cardinals, wouldn't be shocked if the Cardinals kept him as well. Hassan Reddick. Could we get maybe a Hassan Reddick reunion with the Cardinals? Steve Keim is not the general manager anymore. So now that Steve Keim is gone, and he was a big reason on why Hassan Reddick is not a Cardinal anymore because he didn't franchise tag him and he didn't, and that's another thing about the Cardinals too. They don't really tend to use the franchise tag a lot. So I'm not surprised that they're not going to be applying the franchise tag on anybody. And I don't really think that there's anybody on this team worthy of franchise tagging that's going to be a free agent this offseason anyway. But he did record double-digit sacks and prior to being a Jet last year. So Hassan Reddick is another guy I think could benefit the Cardinals. Along with, maybe in the secondary, I'm pretty sure Rasul Douglas is also a free agent who was coming off a year with Buffalo. It's funny too because Christian Kirk a couple days ago it was reported he was going to be released from the Jaguars, but then he ended up getting traded to the Texans. Part of me thought, okay, maybe we could bring him back, but that's dead in the water now, unfortunately. But also defensive back. There are guys that the Cardinals could look at in the draft as well regarding that. But the interior offensive line as well is a big reason on why Kyler Murray had to run a lot last season. Obviously, Will Hernandez was down because he had a season-ending knee injury, and he's also a free agent. So there's a chance that he may not be a Cardinal, depending on what Monty thinks on, okay, he's coming off of a knee injury. Would you want to risk bringing him back while he's up there in age? Does he still have it left after the knee injury? So interior offensive line, you have Trey Smith, Tevin Jenkins, Kevin Zettler, guys that the Cardinals can also look at. Milton Williams is a guy that the Cardinals have shown interest in as well, another Eagle who will be a free agent as well. And so I go back to the familiarity with Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon loves bringing in former Eagle players. He's done it quite a bit, actually, in his first 2 years as the Cardinals head coach. So Milton Williams, a guy who had a very big Super Bowl, going after Mahomes a lot, really making a name for himself as he's slated to become a free agent. I talked about Zach Bond in the past, but he just re-signed with a 3-year deal with the Eagles, so that's no longer a possibility. But but obviously Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, and Trey Hendrickson have seemed to be the Cardinals' biggest top 3 in terms of interest so far. I'm really surprised that the Cardinals have not at least made a pitch at Myles Garrett yet. But then again, Myles Garrett is probably the best pass rusher in the league, if not one of them. So it is going to be hard to make a really good offer in your favor to get a guy like Myles Garrett. So, but for all we know, maybe they did make a pitch on Myles Garrett, but obviously Myles Garrett wants to play for a winning team. And Arizona, while they have an opportunity to get to that point, they still have a lot of steps left before they become a championship caliber team. They got to make the playoffs first. That's been an issue since 2021. They have not made the playoffs since. So, they got to get to the playoffs first and really make a name of themselves before they are donned Super Bowl contenders. So I don't think Myles Garrett will be a Cardinal. It would be nice, but I highly doubt it. Trey Hendrickson is a guy that I would see more possible being a Cardinal because the Cardinals have the money to pay him, right? Money is the big factor for Trey Hendrickson. He wants $30 million a year. I say give it to him. The Cardinals have the cap space to do it. I would say pay Trey Hendrickson what he wants. The Cardinals have not had what feels like since Darnell Dockett a consistent pass rusher. And like I said earlier, the last time a Cardinal recorded double-digit sacks was J.J. Watt, a washed-up version of J.J. Watt. So I'd say give him the $30 million a year. Why not? You might as well invest in it. You're probably not going to get another opportunity like that regarding pass rushers. I say go for it. Same thing with Milton Williams or Josh Sweat. If they can't get Trey Hendrickson, give them the money they want. Our pass rushers were not good at all last year. 5 sacks was the leader. They have to go all in at the defensive line in this free agency in 2025. We're about a week away from free agency, or a week and a half, something like that. So very exciting coming up for the Cardinals. They have the money to spend. I hope that they spend. This team has what it takes to have a very, very good future. And we'll talk about Kyler Murray a little bit in next episode, but we're going to go into a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks. Spring training continues, and we'll talk a little bit about the pitchers as we get closer to opening day. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to talk Snake baseball here on AZ Sports Zone on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What does he want on the head?
Hey yo, what's good, Georgia? It's your boy ACS, and if you love sports from the Peach State as much as I do, then Georgia Sports Central is your one-stop destination for down south sports, courtesy of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you a yellow jacket at heart, or do you bleed the red and black of the Bulldogs? Do you keep it true to Atlanta with Trey Young, Capella, and the boys? Do you rise up with the Dirty Birds on Sundays? Are you excited to see what the future holds for Michael Penix Jr., Bijan, and the rest of the Falcon squad? Do you live at 755 Battery Avenue? Do you rep for Albies, Acuna, and the rest of Braves country? If so, then let's get united every Wednesday for some Braves, Hawks, UGA, Georgia Tech, Atlanta Dream, Falcons, and more on Georgia Sports Central, only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle. while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies,
And your one-timers,
you wicked wristas.
and be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
And welcome back to the AZ Sports Zone on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you guys are just now tuning in, we just covered the Arizona Cardinals on free agency, and hopefully the Cardinals will have a very big free agency. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Also, the talk about the division a little bit. Seattle is selling everything. Geno Smith got traded. DK Metcalf might be next. Man, it's the NFC West is open for the Cardinals. So hopefully the Cardinals get tougher while their opponents get weaker. So, but with that being said, let's jump into our beloved snakes in the desert, the Arizona Diamondbacks. So spring training has continued. Today's game was actually canceled. They were supposed to play the Angels today, but it got canceled because it has been raining quite a bit here in Arizona lately. So today's game was canceled. But yesterday they did play the Mariners. They won 11-4, and that game also it. I really see. This is why I love spring training so much. You get to see a bunch of young guys that you know aren't going to be on the active roster, the opening day roster, but you get to see what they can do in spring training, especially the prospects in terms of what they could bring to the team in the future. But yesterday's game, we got to see Jordan Lawler and Drew Jones play at the same exact time, and they both had identical stats. Both Drew Jones and Jordan Lawler, they both had 2 hits, and they both drove in a run. And Drew Jones only had 2 at bats, but he had hits in both of them. Jordan Lawler had 4 at bats, had 2 hits, drove in a run. So these are the 2 biggest Diamondback prospects that we should all be really excited for. And this was pretty much the first time I was actually able to watch Drew Jones on TV lately. Haven't been able to see him that much, but his base running is impressive too. He can run the bases pretty well. Same thing with Jordan Lawler. He continues to look good, but my only concern with both of those players, for that matter, is just health. Lawler was injured a majority of last year. If you guys remember, Drew Jones was hurt right after the Diamondbacks drafted him, so injury history is a big concern for both of those players. But in that Mariners game, they both looked really good. It looked really good. And obviously, prior to that, they played the Guardians and they lost 4-0. They lost to the Giants 11-5. They beat the Cubs 10-2. And in that game, we got to see Corbin Burns pitch in that Cubs game. He did give up a run, but he played like 2.2 and 1/3 of an inning, and he only gave up 1 run. So Corbin Burns is due to give up a run at some point. But other than that, he has not given up a run in spring training so far. He's looked really good. And the pitchers in general have looked really good. Like, this is why I think that Brian Kaplan is going to be a really good pitching coach for us. Obviously, it didn't work out with Brent Strom. They fired him, and he's now in Pittsburgh, by the way, which is something I didn't find out until recently. But it didn't work out with him. They brought in Brian Kaplan, a guy who was an assistant in Philadelphia. He led Phillies pitchers like Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, all those guys. He was a big reason on why those pitchers had a really good ERA to start 2024 last year. And that's something that we should really be looking forward to regarding our current starting pitchers. Because there's not really something I can, like last year, I mean, our starting pitchers gave up runs over and over again. Even in spring training, too, our starters got injured. They were giving up runs in spring training. This year, they've looked a lot better to start off spring training. And they've been able to stay healthy, too, which is saying a lot compared to last year. We talk about Eduardo Rodriguez getting hurt in spring training and being out for like 5 months. And Erod pitched recently in his last game, and he pitched 2 scoreless innings. So he's looked really good in spring training so far. We haven't seen Jordan Montgomery as much. Hopefully that will change very soon. And Zach Gallen and Corbin Burns are 2 aces. They look really good so far. Ryan Nelson as well. And Ryan Nelson has pitched quite a bit as the number 2 pitcher after the starter. So, which is something I continue to talk about regarding the bullpen, right? The bullpen may have to involve a starter of ours or 2 because the Diamondbacks have 7 current starting caliber pitchers. And Torey Lovullo's made it clear that he wants to stick to the 5-man rotation that the Diamondbacks always run, right? So you got Gallen and Burns. Those 2 are obviously never going to be in the bullpen, probably for at any point of their career. Brandon Pfaadt, I think that he should stay a starter. He most likely will be a starter. You have Eduardo Rodriguez, and then you have Merrill Kelly. I think that's going to be the 5-man rotation that Torey Lovullo keeps. And then you got Jordan Montgomery and Ryan Nelson. I'd say that either one of those players are getting traded, either that or maybe Torey could throw both of them in the bullpen, which is something I don't like saying because Jordan Montgomery's making $25 million this year. And for a starter who had a terrible year and now he's in the bullpen, that's not really something that I would really like as a manager, but it is what it is. That's what Torey's got to deal with. So I could see both of them getting thrown into the bullpen, which honestly, I think that would be a really good fit for both of them. Ryan Nelson looked really good as a starter last year after the All-Star break. He was a really big shock last year. Like I remember at the beginning of last year when his ERA was like 5.70, I believe, and the fans were begging Mike Hazen to designate him for assignment. And then after the All-Star break, he had that huge turnaround that we were all waiting for. So there's that. And then, of course, Jordan Montgomery, who's coming off a bad year, but, obviously he has been in shape and he's actually doing a spring training for once. Last year, he didn't play in spring training. He got signed right away. He was good for a couple games and then it just went dead in the water after that. So, like I said, I really like this the looks of this new pitching staff that we have, and of course the starting pitchers continue to shine in spring training. Now I know that it's spring training, regular season is a whole different form of baseball, but if they look good in spring training, it really shows good signs heading into opening day, especially because the Diamondbacks have a really tough schedule to start off the season in 2025 when we get to opening day, which brings me to my next topic. So opening day is right around the corner. Right around the corner. We're taking on so to start off the season, we're taking on the Chicago Cubs, March 27th. It's on a Thursday. It's at Chase Field, which by the way, Chase Field fixed their roof finally, thank God. They I don't know if Diamondback fans knew this, but they had a problem with their roof where it would take them hours to open the roof and another few hours to close the roof. I remember when I went to the game last year, uh, there were people saying that some games where they have the roof open, they have to wait until all of the fans leave the game to be able to close the roof because there were a bunch of workers that were worried that the roof would have a weird malfunction and it would just cause a bunch of weird objects to fall on fans, this and that. So they finally fixed the roof. It came to an agreement. So the roof is now good to go. And but back to the regular season though. So the Cubs and Diamondbacks, the Cubs don't start off their season against us. It's against the Dodgers, but their first full 4-game series is against us. So who would you throw on the mound on opening day? Corbin Burns or Zach Gallen? That has been a decision that Torey Lovullo came out and said he is having a hard time making. And you also got to look at the perspectives too. After the Cubs, we take on the Yankees. And then after the Yankees, I believe we play the Nationals, who I think are going to be a dark horse team this year. So Burns or Gallen, I think either pitcher that they throw out there will have a really good game. I know the Cubs got really tough in free agency. They did a lot, fantastic moves. They're going to be a really good team. I have them winning their division. So the Cubs are going to be a tough team to deal with, whether you throw Burns or Gallen out there. But I think it also depends on who the Cubs throw out there. I know that they're playing the Dodgers in Japan to start the season, and I believe Imanaga is pitching the first game, if I'm not mistaken. So if they were to throw Shota Imanaga against the Diamondbacks, which I still don't know if they will, because he is playing against the Dodgers in Japan. So I really don't see what Craig Counsell would do against the Diamondbacks to start their season. But they still have Justin Steele, who could pitch in the second game of that series. So I think it depends on who the Cubs throw on the mound, on who the Diamondbacks will throw out there on the mound, right? I think with Corbin Burns, you're going to get a lot of durability in multiple innings. So if the Cubs throw one of their best pitchers out there, I say throw Burns out there. Zach Allen, while I still think he has what it takes to be an ace-worthy pitcher, he is coming off of a down year. So do you want to shoot his confidence a little bit more by not throwing him out there opening day like you have the past 3 years, I believe? So I would rather see Burns on the mound opening day. That's me personally. But I think that Torey Lovello is going to throw Zach Gallen out there on opening day. I think that's more likely to happen because this is his team. He has been the starting pitcher on opening day for the past few years now. So I say, yeah, if you're going to stick to what Torey's used to doing, throw Zach Gallen on the mound. This Cubs team, however, they have what it takes to be legit, as Adam just said right here. Yeah. The Cubs will hopefully be legit, should have Shota, Steele, and Talon against the D-backs. Okay. So I knew Shota and Steele were pitching in the Japan series, but I never knew if that was going to transition into the Diamondbacks. So I think that if they throw Imanaga out there, then Burns should be the opening day pitcher because after the season Imanaga had, he bounces back from that year and he continues to be the pitcher that the Cubs ace. I think Burns should be the durable guy to throw out there on opening day. But either way, whether Torey throws Burns out there or Gallen out there, we're going to see both of these pitchers when they take on the Yankees most likely as well. So while Gallen is coming off of a rough year, like I said, new pitching coach, completely different pitching staff. So new coaches can really benefit players to a certain degree. So I think Gallen is due for another good year after, the rough year he had last year with almost an ERA of 4. So, but I think if I'm Torey, I should just play it safe and throw Burns out there opening day. I mean, why not? Largest contract in D-backs history. You might as well see what he's worth right away. So that's another thing too. Diamondbacks signing big name pitchers, they just don't work out sometimes. Like Madison Bumgarner, Jordan Montgomery, Zach Greinke. I really hope Corbin Burns doesn't fall in that category either. But even though there's an opt out after the second year of his contract, but let's see. Adam says Cubs play in Japan, but then they come back for a week of spring training before that opening series, so could very easily be the top 3 of the rotation, and that's exactly why I made that prediction. Yeah, I mean they play the Dodgers in Japan, but then again, you go right back to spring training after that. So, and it's a week or a week and a half. So, Imanaga and Steele are going to be well rested. So, yeah, why not throw them in there for an extra game, especially against the Diamondbacks, who are playoff contenders? You might as well, if you're the Cubs, you might as well throw in your best pitchers against the D-backs and an NL team as well. Even though the Cubs, I think they're going to win their division, you also have to look at placement, right? When the Cubs play the Diamondbacks, it really does depend on the amount of times those two teams beat each other for tiebreaker scenarios, right? In 2023, the Cubs and D-backs had that scenario where the Diamondbacks barely got into the playoffs because of that tiebreaker that they had over the Cubs. So there's also that scenario too. Just in case the Cubs and D-backs are wild card teams and they're fighting for that tiebreaker spot, you might as well throw in your best pitchers just to have a better chance of getting that tiebreaker scenario. But like I said, overall, the pitching and spring training overall is something that I've enjoyed seeing so far, and I can't wait to see how they build off of that going into opening day, as we're pretty close. We're pretty close. We're a few weeks away. So happy to see a contender in Arizona back on the baseball field again. But we're going to take our second break. When we come back, we will dive into the Phoenix Suns briefly, and then we will end the episode with ASU and U of A, basketball and baseball more specifically. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to talk basketball and college hoops as well as we get closer to March Madness. Again, you're listening to the AZ Sports Zone on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
How we doing, sports fans? This is Christian Harvey, your host of Gritsville, USA, your go-to show for all things Detroit and Michigan here on IE Sports Radio. Whether you're here for Gritty Lions talk, getting pumped up for the great Detroit sports renaissance, or hating on your neighbor depending on if they were green or blue, we got you covered. Whether you're in the East, West, or Central, we got you covered. Join me as we tackle through all that the great state of Michigan has to offer in the world of sports. Catch me, Christian Harvey, each week on Gritsville, USA, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy Dentarius Lava.
And we're the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
And welcome back to the AZ Sports Zone on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Big shout out to the two video drops I just played, Gritsville USA and Fast Break. Make sure to check out not just their shows, but every other show that we have on the IE Sports Radio. We got a bunch of great shows from coast to coast, so make sure to check them all out. And we just covered the Diamondbacks spring training and a little bit about the starting pitchers. We'll see what Tori decides as we get closer to opening day, but before we wrap up this episode, let's talk about some Phoenix Suns basketball. A little bit of good I can finally talk about, right? lately I've been talking about the Phoenix Suns losing too much, but um, their last game, the Suns made a 23-point comeback to beat the LA Clippers. And yes, I still have dumpster fire on the ticker still because they're still not in the play-in tournament at least. But this game was it was just confusing. Like even though they won, this game was so confusing to me because obviously the game started off bad, right? They were down 23 at one point, and there was a point in the game where Mike Budenholzer and Kevin Durant got into an argument. They had a little disagreement over a timeout scenario, and it looked really bad. Like it looked like that was the nail in the coffin for Mike Budenholzer at the end of the year, which could still very well be. And there's a chance that he will be a one and done. But despite all of that, the Suns still made a 23-point comeback, and they beat the Clippers too, a team that is currently or was currently in the playoffs. I believe they fell to the 9th seed after this loss. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a very good win overall. Colin Gillespie off the bench too, a guy who did not really see the court a whole lot in certain games. He scored 12 points off of the bench. All of them were in the fourth quarter too. So he was it's almost like he was Steve Nash for one game. Like he was dishing the ball out to everybody. He was scoring when he needed to, and he really helped the Suns make this comeback and win the game. But despite all of that, the Suns are still 11th in the West. They're coming off of before this game, they were coming off a loss against the Timberwolves, which seems like a team that the Suns can never beat now. It's Timberwolves all of a sudden have our number now for whatever the reason, but uh, they did lose to them by 18 points. Anthony Edwards had a hell of a game against them, and they beat the Pelicans in a blowout fashion before that as well. So those were their recent games. The Suns are scheduled to take on the Denver Nuggets tonight here in about an hour or 10 minutes, maybe, something like that. But they are playing the Nuggets today. It's in Denver. So another tough task for Phoenix. But as far as I know, they don't have any injuries right now, so that the Suns are fully healthy going into this game. I'm pretty sure Bradley Beal is playing, so he's back today after not playing in the last game. So the Suns schedule after that, after the Nuggets, they take on the Mavericks. Honestly, I think Mavs fans have it worse than we do right now. I'm not even lying. They might have it worse than us right now. But they have the Mavericks, and then they have the Grizzlies, and then they got the Rockets. So they have 4 straight home games before they're back home against the Sacramento Kings next Friday, a week from today. So, the schedule really doesn't lie. We have the toughest remaining schedule among the NBA left, and we are currently 2.5 games out of the play-in tournament right now. So the Suns still have a chance, right? They still have a chance to get into the play-in tournament, get as high in the standings as they can, and hopefully pull a miraculous miracle off to get into the playoffs. Which, to be honest, I think the Suns will be lucky to make the play-in tournament at this rate. I think that if you're Matt Ishbia, you should just focus on what you're going to do next season, because this season has been really disappointing. It's really been a failure. But on the bright side, Suns announced that they will not trade Devin Booker ever. I don't know how reliable it is, because the Suns have made up lies before. But as of right now, at least, it was reported that the Phoenix Suns will not be trading Devin Booker this offseason. It's more likely going to be Kevin Durant as the odd man out. But then again, I even have my questions on if the Suns are going to trade Kevin Durant or not. Last game, it seemed like he was here to stay. Everything was going good. But Devin Booker will not be traded. The Suns will continue to try to build around him. I really hate that the Suns are putting Devin Booker through this, though, because if they do fire Mike Budenholzer, this will be, I think, his 8th coach in his 11-year career here in Phoenix, and that is not a good look at all. It really, I would say, takes interest away from coaches to come here, because it feels like if you mess up one time as the Suns head coach, you're gone. The only coach that really stayed here for 3 years was Monty Williams. And even then, I still question whether the Suns should have fired him or not. But It is what it is. Mike Budenholzer might be a one and done in Phoenix. It is what it is. And if he is a one and done in Phoenix, there have been talks about bringing in former Suns players for coaches like Jared Dudley, which I'm surprised that was ever a rumor, but there are guys that the Suns will look into that you might not have ever thought about. So it's kind of similar to the Lakers with JJ Redick, right? They brought him in as their head coach, former player. That is something that I could see the Suns maybe doing this offseason if they do fire Mike Budenholzer. If they don't, we're gonna suck for another year. There you go. This is what it is. But at the end of the day, Booker will not be traded. So yeah, please keep Devin Booker in Phoenix for his entire career. Even though the Suns don't deserve him, um, he's basically the Larry Fitzgerald of Arizona basketball. That's how it's going to end here in Phoenix, probably for him. But it is what it is. Arizona sports. If you're a fan of them, you're used to seeing your favorite player have a ruined career. But it is what it is. So let's move into the Sun Devils, ASU. So we'll talk basketball real quick. So I guess this is technically U of A as well. Meanwhile, Marcus in the building, our gloves off host. Salute to you too, man. So ASU just took on U of A, so I guess this is U of A topic in a way, but they just played U of A in basketball, and U of A beat ASU 113 to 100. So ASU basketball is still having it rough right now. They're 13 and 17, so a rough season. Their last game is tomorrow against the number 9th ranked Texas Tech. So I would expect another loss to finish off their season, but they lost 113 to 100 against U of A. I'm surprised the game was this close. Like I thought U of A was going to blow them out of the water, but Austin Mason had 33 points for ASU. And for U of A, on the other hand, Caleb Love had 21 points, and then KJ Lewis had another 21. Henry Vassar had 22 points. So they had 3 guys over the 20-point mark. Our second leading scorer for ASU was Sandin with 19. So obviously, just another bad basketball game out of ASU. It's been like that all year. But ASU fans, if you need to say something back to U of A, just say 49-7. All right, that's if you're an ASU fan, that's all you need to say. All right, but regarding basketball, yeah, U of A has ASU's number. That's just how it is, But yeah, U of A gets another win over ASU in basketball, and we should just, if you're an ASU fan, you should just hope that they fire Bobby or fire Hurley and move on. But regarding baseball, ASU is currently 9-4. They've won their last 2 games. So they beat Minnesota. So they lost the first 2 games against Minnesota baseball, and then they beat Minnesota 8-7 to close out the series. And then they played University of Las Vegas, and they won 7-0. So pitching really showed up in that game. And their next 3 games are against Gonzaga, and it's in Phoenix. And then after that, we have another ASU and U of A rivalry game, and they take on each other in baseball. So it's a 1-game series. It's not even a series. It's 1 game, obviously. March 11th on a Tuesday, the Sun Devils will travel on to Tucson to take on the Wildcats. And then after that, they got TCU for a 3-game series. So lots to look forward to in ASU baseball. ASU's looked pretty good in baseball so far, 9-4. They've beaten the teams that they're supposed to beat. So let's really hope that they can carry that on at least before football is back for ASU, because I'm definitely going to be excited about that. And then, of course, all right, so let's get into U of A. So I talked about U of A basketball a little bit already. They did beat ASU. But other than that, U of A basketball, the Wildcats, on the other hand, this thing would pop up. So before the win against ASU, or wait, what the heck? Actually, no, I pulled up the baseball site, but they did win. Okay, this thing was all right. So they lost to Iowa State 84-67. which I thought that would be a closer game. I know Iowa State is ranked 10th right now, and U of A is 24th, but I thought that would be a really good game, which it was for a little bit, the beginning of it, and then Iowa State just went on a rampage to close out the first half, and then they just ended up winning the game. Nobody really showed up for U of A in that game. Their leading scorer was Jaden Bradley at 18 points, and then for Iowa State, kind of the same thing. But they just ended up having it just came down to better coaching for Iowa State in that game, so they won that game. And then after the ASU win, they're taking on the Kansas Jayhawks to close out their season tomorrow. They should win that game, and then U of A, they should look forward to March Madness. So we'll most likely see them in March Madness. Meanwhile, ASU on the other hand, man, it's just been rough. That's all I gotta say. But regarding U of A baseball, before we wrap up this episode, so for baseball, U of A is currently, excuse me. All right, so they're currently 8-4 right now, so around the same page as ASU right now. So it's definitely going to be exciting when ASU travels to Corbett Field to take on the Wildcats. But they are coming off of a win against Pepperdine, and then they took on Tennessee, lost to them 5-1, and then they actually upsetted Texas A&M too, which was crazy. Texas A&M was ranked first at that time, but they beat Texas A&M 3-2. That was a really close game, and it feels like the Wildcats kind of broke Texas A&M, because since then Texas A&M is not really. They went from first to 14th. So, and it was starting with that U of A game. So it really feels like the Wildcats really put a curse on Texas A&M or something like that. But man, that was just a really good upset for the Wildcats, being able to beat Texas A&M when literally no one thought they would. But anyway, so that's gonna do it for episode 34. I really appreciate everyone who stopped by for this episode. By the way, before I go, obviously baseball wise, if you want to catch me talking baseball, softball for college and the pros, college softball and then pro baseball, make sure to check out our show, The Bullpen Bulletin, every Tuesday, where I will go live along with Ricky K and Mike Pat. Make sure to check out The Bullpen Bulletin if you can. But with that being said, guys, that's going to do it for episode 34. Once again, big shout out to everybody who stopped by. Once again, make sure to check out all of our sponsors, Planet Jerky, of course, Vital Apparel, Seal the Deal Wax Seals, and of course, shout out to the IE Sports Radio. Make sure to follow both of the X accounts that I run, AZ Sports Zone IE and at the AZTRL. Make sure to follow both of those accounts. And if you're interested, become a supporter, where I will shout you guys out and maybe have you guys on the show at one point as well. And of course, big shout out to everyone who stopped by in the chat: Karen Rodriguez, Adam Karnick, and of course Glenn from the Bull North Breakdown, and Marcus. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about free agency regarding the Cardinals. We'll see how the Diamondbacks are as we get closer to opening day, and we'll see if the Phoenix Suns can pull off some type of miraculous miracle to get back into the play-in tournament. We will talk a little bit more about college basketball and baseball regarding ASU and U of A, and I'll try to sneak in some GCU next week. I know GCU softball, I think baseball too, have looked pretty good so far this year, so we'll talk about GCU, a little bit about the Lopes next week. But with that being said, guys, thank you guys for stopping by, and of course, Taryn Arias, thanks, man. That was really had a great show today. And by the way, if it wasn't noticeable already, I did switch my show time to 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So starting 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, that is when I will go live now. So just wanted to give a quick update on that. Thank you guys so much for stopping by to episode 34 of the AZ Sports Zone on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. I'm your host, Alden K. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and I will see you guys next Friday. Have a good one.